Call to order a meeting for the normal local liquor commission. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here. We have a motion for approval for the special meeting of September 5th, 2023.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any corrections or additions? Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. The minutes are approved. We have a video gaming application for Games on Main LLC at 1101 North Main Street, Seat 1B. Motion for approval, please.
Move approval.
Second. Thank you. Discussion on this item. Call the roll.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That item is approved. We have a liquor license application for Heaters Development Company LLC doing business as Heaters Hot Chicken at 100 South Bell Avenue in Normal. Motion for approval.
Move approval.
Second. This is for a Class D liquor license, all liquor. Questions or comments on that? Please call the roll.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That's our final business for liquor. A motion for adjournment, please.
Motion to adjourn?
Second. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. We are adjourned, and in about 2 minutes, we'll start again. Thank you. Call to order a public hearing on a proposed property tax levy. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus?
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Byers?
Here.
Ms. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Preston?
Here.
Mr. McCarthy?
Here.
Is there anyone here wishing to speak to a proposed property tax levy? Come forward. You've been here before, so you know, state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
But a truth and taxation hearing such as we're having here tonight is what do I say at this hearing that I haven't said in previous years. For years, I have been calling on the need of reform to a broken public pension system in the state of Illinois. And I realize that a lot of that is beyond the scope of this council, but just to illustrate how serious of a problem this is, the state of Illinois is going to end fiscal year 2023 with $211 billion in pension liability. This year's levy, normally the property tax levy for the town of Normal includes our pension obligations and funding for the Normal Public Library. And I understand as bad as this pension system is, in the state of Illinois, we do have obligations that we have to meet, and we owe to our police and fire personnel for that. But this year's levy also includes a $500,000 allocation to the general fund. And I find that very troubling, and I want to raise some concerns with that here tonight because we're not talking about funding not just talking about funding a broken public pension system here. We are talking about the fiduciary responsibilities of this council. Last time I spoke here, I believe it was in May, I spoke in opposition to additional cannabis dispensaries in the town of Normal. Like it or not, we have them. We're now going to have 4 of them in the town of Normal. And like all things Illinois, legalized marijuana is taxed at a higher rate in the state of Illinois than other states. And this is, like it or not, an additional revenue stream to the town of Normal, as we have 4 of these, we're going to have 4 of these dispensaries in there. So how do we square that with a 6.8% increase to the property tax levy? I would like some discussion on that here tonight. I would also like to see some discussion on how this money to the general fund is going to be spent. I think the time for that discussion is not at a taxation hearing. It is at individual council meetings where we are discussing wants versus needs type of issues. If the general fund is running dry, why didn't we have this discussion a year ago when this council approved buying 2 new additional Rivian luxury vehicles? That is troubling to me. So I credit Councilmember Lorenz for last council meeting trying to reduce this amount. I appreciate that. I don't think it goes far enough, but it's obvious that there is not support for that on this council. What I would ask tonight is some consideration as to how that $500,000 is going to be allocated. I would like to see some debt reduction measures being taken tonight, and I would appreciate your consideration of that. Thank you.
Excuse me. Is there anyone else wishing to speak on a proposed property tax levy? And third and final time, is there anyone wishing to speak on a proposed property tax levy? Motion for adjournment.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Byers.
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That public hearing is adjourned. Call to order a regular meeting for the Normal Town Council for December 4th, 2023. Please call the roll.
Mayor Kus.
Here.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Here.
Ms. Harris,
Here.
Mr. Byers.
Here.
Ms. Smith,
Here.
Mr. Preston,
Here.
Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. We start with the omnibus agenda. Items considered routine and will be taken with one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. Ms. Harris,
Yes, I would like to pull item D, please.
I'm sorry.
D
Thank
as in
you.
dog.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Items considered on the omnibus are approval of the minutes of the special meeting of November 20th, 2023, and approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of November 20th, 2023. A report to receive and file town of normal expenditures for payment as of November 29th, 2023. A motion to approve the year 2024 town meeting calendar, and a resolution to waive the formal bidding process and authorize the purchase of a mobile license plate recognition system and installation on the parking enforcement vehicle by Minuteman Security and Life Safety at the cost of $47,164.70. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, those items are approved. Item D is a resolution to accept bids and award a contract to Stark Excavating Incorporated for the Savannah Green Streets and Alleys project in the amount of $3,744,274.65. Ms. Harris,
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I call this,
for approval?
motion for approval, I'm sorry.
Second.
Go ahead, Ms.
Thank you. I don't use right now. I call this out because I've had questions about this actually relatively recently, and had already spoken with City Manager Reese when I got those concerns. So I wanted to make sure that we called out that this work is being done. It has now been put out there for a bid. This has been a long time coming, probably as long as I've been on the council. Definitely, because I know I've been a pain in the butt about it. And so we thank you for the due diligence and the consistency on making sure that we could provide this service to Savannah Green. And finally, we were able to find a bid that was within what we could manage, because we know that there's a lot of work to be done with Savannah Green. So I truly appreciate staff taking the time to make this happen. Like I said, this has been a very long process, roughly 7 years, because that's how long I've been on council. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Harris. I did want to say this has been a long time in coming. We've known that Savannah Green pavement has needed attention. We're very fortunate to have the ability to allocate our American Rescue Plan Act dollars toward this, and it did take quite some time to get through the design phase. Unfortunately, although the bid is $3.7 million, it's not going to be able to cover every street and every alley. Packet page D4 shows a map of what is included in this first phase of the project. We will also try to do some work in-house, and then there'll be phase 2 yet to come. But this is a great start. We appreciate everyone's patience. With council approval tonight, the plan will be for the vendor to be ready to go in April, with the work concluding in August. So it will be a very rough summer for the residents of Savannah Green. It will be inconvenient, but the end result should be worth it. So, thank you.
Further on this item? Ms. Smith?
Yes, I had requested if the city manager could provide a percentage of the project that the ARPA funds were addressing and what still remained, but instead indicate to me the dollar amount as an estimate. If you would, please share that.
Based on our estimates right now, we think there will still be about $1.5 to $2.5 million worth of work to do, depending on the bid environment when the rest of the work goes out to bid. So we will rebudget for that in the future.
And that is the type of roadwork project that we've handled when we've done the capital budget. We've had individual projects in that range before, but none of the magnitude that these ARPA dollars are allowing us to do.
Right, to do this in this entire neighborhood is significant.
Thank you.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. Harris,
Aye.
Mr. Byers,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That resolution is approved and concludes our omnibus agenda. First item of general ordinance, orders is an ordinance authorizing the 2023 property tax levy.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
Discussion on this item. Ms. Lorenz.
I'll kick it off for whatever discussion there might be. I know we covered this at our meeting, I believe, a month ago, the first one in November. That was where we directed staff to prepare the levy for this amount. And I just want to echo what I said then. And, I still feel the same way, that I agree with and feel comfortable with so much of this levy, except for one thing. I'm glad to see the persistent and diligent funding of our pension, both IMRF and first responders. So that is definitely in the right direction. I am very happy to see the additional funding for the library and some of the reconstruction and rehabilitation that they have over the next year or so. But coincidentally, as the public commenter said, I voiced concern a month ago about the additional $500,000. And it's not clear to me the necessity for that, especially in light of the fact that earlier this calendar year, we felt compelled to remove $500,000 for the repeal of the vehicle use tax. So it seems a little bit of, I don't know what the word is, but a little inconsistent. And so with that uncertainty in my mind, I still can't support this amount. I would have liked to have seen some support for a compromise, but we couldn't seem to get that done. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
I wanted to address several issues. First, to respond to the issue of removing the motor license transfer tax. And this seems disingenuous to now be seeking $500,000. If I could point out that despite the increase in the levy, that the average property owner will see a decrease in what they owe the town of Normal, because our tax base has expanded over more properties paying into the tax. There's been some comments about the pensions, and I do want to remind individuals that the calculation for determining the a correct amount to be funding pensions was adjusted because of changes in the mortality calculations and recognition of some prolonged low interest rates. So our funding requirement was increased because of a change in assumptions for those pensions that has happened over time. And as far as the desire to have $500,000 going into the general fund, the bulk of our funding does come from sales tax, which is very variable. And we have seen situations where the sales tax gave us an unexpected boost, but our taxes are primarily coming from consumer demand, and those are not as reliable as this tax base, and that is a contributing factor for this, besides the fact that the library is pursuing some much-needed work on their space.
Thank you. Mr. Byers.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Well, mostly just echo my comments from the meeting last month. I think that whenever we get to do several different things kind of at the same time with our levy, per Councilmember Smith, having dollar per dollar decrease to homeowners and property owners in Normal, while also simultaneously ensuring we are meeting our pension obligations. To me, those several things happening at the same time is a positive. So we'll support the levy tonight. Thanks.
Further? Please call the roll.
Mr. Byers?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
No.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
No.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That item is approved. Item 8 is an ordinance authorizing the abatement of 2023 property taxes for debt service.
Move approval.
Second.
Just for clarification, this is something we have to do every year. We have a number of general obligation bonds that are required to be paid by the town unless we generate enough otherwise, other revenue to honor that debt, and we have, again, this year, as we always do. So we have to abate the property tax for debt service. Discussion on this item. Please call the roll. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Lorenz?
You know, just a comment that it bears repeating, that our debt is not paid for by our property tax. So there's lots of opinions about debt, how much is enough, too much. And this is a annual thing we do every year, and as long as I've been on council, we've always abated it, which I think is a testimony to our ability to run efficiently and pay off our mortgage, if you will, first. And so I applaud the staff and the finance group for helping making that happen year in and year out. So I just want to make that crystal clear, because oftentimes I do hear it misunderstood, and it's easy to be misunderstood.
Ms. Reese?
Thank you for those comments. I appreciate that. I did want to also add that the town, with council's direction and council support, has a very long history of paying off our bonds when they're callable. And we've been doing that strategically and effectively. And so we have been significantly paying down debt. That process will continue for the debt restructure plan that we presented to council a couple of years ago. So we're making significant progress with that. This particular action, as the mayor indicated, removes any property tax levy that would be collected to pay off debt. And we have always made sure to abate the levy, and we pay off our debt with other resources. So thank you for your support on that.
Mr. McCarthy?
While we're talking about debt, I echo and appreciate my counterparts and Ms. Reese commenting on this. The only thing to add is a reminder that recently we paid off in excess of an $8 million bond ahead of time. And so we have been making great strides to reduce the amount of debt the town of Normal carries. And as Ms. Reese mentioned, a new restructured debt service plan has accelerated some of those payments and allows us to do this without using sources like property tax to fund those. So paying off debt early without adding one extra penny of cost to the taxpayers is a really good financial strategy that we're under. Thanks.
Further on this item? Please call the roll.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That item is approved. We have one item of new business tonight, and that is a motion to approve an appointment to the McLean County Regional Planning Commission. Motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
And before we take the vote, Mr. McCarthy, would you identify that person?
I will. You are recommending Mr. Rory Roberge. Mr. Roberge currently resides in Normal and is employed as an auto insurance underwriter at State Farm. Prior to State Farm, Mr. Roberge served as a naval flight officer at the rank of lieutenant commander for the United States Navy. Mr. Roberge graduated from the U.S. Naval Academy with a bachelor's in history. He brings his leadership experience to the Regional Planning Commission, where he will assist McLean County in moving forward in a responsible and sustainable growth trajectory while ensuring community benefits to all residents. Mr. Roberge will fill an empty seat on the Regional Planning Commission, fulfilling a term set to end on December 31st of 2026.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye. That item is approved. We have two public commenters tonight. First is Mike Brown. So, Mr. Brown, if you want to come up and just grab that center chair. Just to go over the rules very briefly, We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and to just state your name for the record at the beginning.
Apologize in advance, kind of new to this. So I made myself some notes because I really don't like public speaking at all. But this is something that's pretty important to me, so I thought I'd bring it in front of the council. I'd like to address the council tonight.
Mr. Brown, I just,
Oh,
again,
sorry.
you need to state your name for the record.
Like I said, a little nervous. Michael Brown. Thank you. I'd like to address the council tonight about an upcoming item, which is the Collie Ridge rezoning. I'm sure a lot of you heard about this. Maybe you know some people who live in that area or have heard about it. So kind of sorry to spring this on you tonight, but I did try and contact every member of the council on November 2nd and only received a response from Andy. Thank you for that, Andy. My neighbors and I have a lot of issues with this proposal, so it's kind of hard to touch on all that in 3 minutes. I'm aware that Thursday is the first step, which is the proposal is going to go in front of the Planning Commission. Honestly, speaking with my neighbors, looking at historically like similar proposals that have come before the Planning Commission, feel it's kind of naive to think they'll vote any differently than they have in the past, which is kind of feels like ignore the voices of the community and just kind of hide behind the comprehensive plan. When this item comes before the council, I ask you to please remember your obligation to the taxpayers and voters, and remember, you hand-selected a group of folks to participate in a vision plan. I looked on the Normal Council or the Town of Normal website and read a little about this, and overwhelmingly, the voices of this community said they want that small town feel to remain. Introducing large-scale dense housing into an area that hardworking people purchase property under the assumption that the zoning would remain the same feels kind of a slap in the face to that vision plan. I'll reach out again to each of you to provide the opportunity to hear myself and my neighbors' concerns. I hope you can find the time to inform yourselves about what your community wants before we sure hope it doesn't just become an issue where it's just rubber stamping another housing development all within a small geographic area in the community. That's really all I have for tonight, but appreciate your time and appreciate what you do.
Our next commenter and final commenter tonight is Ron Ulmer.
I am the aforementioned Ron Ulmer. There was one in Peoria that worked for the city government for a number of years, and occasionally we were confused by people. And anyway, I'm here to talk about health and safety again. And health and safety of the citizens is the priority, #1 priority of government. It's why governments are established. Now, I've had a few issues. I mentioned the fence that was down near a storm sewer on Fort Jesse Road and Greenbrier. The more I think about this, I've said I watched it for years. Nothing was done about it. Now, someone from the town came and cut the weeds around it once or twice every year. But what I'm afraid of is when people see something wrong or dangerous or potentially dangerous, they just are doing their job. I always wonder why the people who whacked the weeds never reported it to the town unless it was just the contractor. The same with the, even though I received a reply from Ms. Reese about the bridge on Main Street, the underpass on Main Street. Actually, the branches come up since there's no leaves on them a little bit. But why nobody notices these things or reports them to the state or whoever is responsible? Seems like everybody has their job to do, and they have these narrow vision on. So I'm saying that perhaps as people that work for the town drive around the town and you folks see things that are dangerous or of concern would report it. Lastly, understand the town spent a lot of money this summer on repairing sidewalks. I think they allocated, was it close to $1 million or so? Or what was the amount? It was a large amount of money. And a year or two ago, some young man was walking by my house and I talked to him and he said he was evaluating the sidewalks. My question is, yeah, I know you have to concentrate in certain areas so they're not just jumping all over town. But however, on a major street like Linden, when one sidewalk is raised inch and a half to an inch and 3/4, why that wasn't a priority in this year's or other year's sidewalk repair. As I reported, my wife broke her leg tripping over that this summer. And the difference between the two slabs was an inch and a half to an inch and 3/4. However, what really got me going was a couple of weeks ago, I saw the town of Normal building a sidewalk to the new Route 66 sign on Pine Street, using 2 or 3 town employees. Now, I don't know how many people are gonna walk or want their picture taken in front of that sign this winter, but isn't it a higher priority? Isn't safety a higher priority than putting a new sidewalk in front of a big sign? To you folks, it isn't. So I'm saying that I think the priorities are wrong many times in this town. It's not I'm against the trail extension or a trail repair. Okay.
Mr. Roller, your time's up.
Okay. I'm against putting those things above things that improve the safety for all citizens. Obviously, lots of people up here don't care about the citizens' safety.
We're taking a motion for adjournment. We'll go to concerns, and I'm gonna start concerns tonight, as it is Mr. Hansen's last meeting with us. I think you've been with us 5 years now, which have certainly been a solid 5 years, and we appreciate the service. You will be missed in the town of Normal, but we understand that you have an opportunity that takes you closer to family and a little bit of a higher position. He is becoming a city manager for the city of Galesburg. So we wish you very, very good luck on that, and you will be missed. Other comments or concerns? Go ahead.
I wanted to just bring attention to the concern that I think has been echoed here on a number of occasions, and not necessarily in response to our commenter about a particular housing development, but just housing in general in this community, particularly affordable housing, is a real problem. And my concern is that I don't think that we are explaining very well the multifacets of this issue. There's issues at the market rate of property available to buy, but probably even more so to rent, and the type of housing, whether it's single family or a denser variety of duplexes or multifamily. And then all the way to if you can imagine a scale of affordability, from that market level all the way to housing for the person that really is struggling to get on their feet. They might be trying to reenter from a completed sentence in prison. They might be struggling with some other mental health or physical health disabilities. And these folks have very little choice in terms of permanent supportive housing. We can probably count on our fingers and toes the amount of truly permanent supportive housing that we have in this community, and we need more. And then there's what I call the missing middle. and that's everything in between. Maybe some of it is subsidized, maybe a lot of it is just plain more affordable for the workforce, for the entry-level person that is getting a new job at the coolest place in town, Rivian, to work. He or she cannot afford a lot of the new properties that are coming online to rent. We need to fix that. And the 7 of us cannot fix it. It's going to take a real multidisciplinary effort from government to industry to social services, schools to get involved and tell the story and come up with a plan, and a comprehensive and a cohesive plan. And that is my concern.
Other comment? Ms. Smith?
I've just noted in checking my calendar that Friday, December 8th is the first day of Hanukkah. And I want to extend best wishes to our friends in the Jewish community as they celebrate this holy day of the holiday season.
Okay, further? Mr. Byers and then Mr. McCarthy.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I was just going to echo your comments and thank Mr. Hanson for his years of service and best of luck in the next adventure.
Yep, Mr. McCarthy.
Thanks, Eric. Good luck. Enjoy yourself. Don't be a stranger.
Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz?
Aye.
Ms. Harris?
Aye.
Mr. Byers?
Aye.
Ms. Smith?
Aye.
Mr. Preston?
Aye.
Mayor Kus?
Aye, we are adjourned.